So it's good to find an anchor point, something that you can kind of base everything else off of. And think about where you're going to place it and how big it's going to be, because if you draw a doorway and it's really small, then you're going to include maybe more than what you see. You want to kind of draw all the way to the edge of the paper. You don't want to stop before the edge of the paper or the picture plane. I'm going to start with this wall that's kind of to the left of my view here. Yeah, so I don't want to go all the way up because I think I want to try to include some of this, but just start somewhere and then see if it's working out. And remember to start really light. So I'm going to do this wall here. And with 2-point perspective, it's very much about using sighting and measuring and thinking about where your horizon line is. Usually your vanishing points are going to be off of your picture plane, and you locate them by trying to, let's say we're using this as the anchor. What I like to do is angle and sight that top left. I'm putting my pencil up to it and I'm bringing the angle down, and I'm going to sight the angle of the bottom, which is kind of like that. So I'm going to sight that angle, and that corner is kind of, I'm right up against that corner. I'm evenly kind of to the left and to the right. So those angles are similar on each side, I believe. This one might be a little less dramatic. So those are those angles, and I want to also think about where my eye is lining up with this wall, right? Where my eye, is my eye up here? No, that would be if I was standing on my table. Maybe my eye, like a laser going from my eye to the wall perpendicular to my picture plane, would be up here if I was standing up high. If I was lying on the floor, my vanishing point and horizon line my vanishing points and horizon line might be down there. So right now I'm trying to locate the horizon line that directly connects to my eye level. So my eye level is kind of about here, and this is going to be the horizon line. Now with 2-point perspective, if you can keep that horizon line very lightly on your page, that will be very helpful. I'm going to do it a little darker so that you guys can see it, but that's the horizon line. You might want to double check where that is. Another thing you could do is imagine where these two meet up, and your vanishing points, your 2 points for the vanishing points, are most likely off of your page. So with 1-point perspective, the vanishing point was very much on the page. The guidelines went right to it. It was very straightforward. With 2-point perspective, remember, the vanishing points are usually way off the page, but you know that the vanishing points are on the horizon line. So if you draw the horizon line on your paper, it will help keep things in track. So if I know my vanishing point, let's say, is somewhere way over here on the left, if I did this angle, let's say like that, I can see that that angle would continue up here. I know my vanishing point isn't there, but that it's over there, and that will help keep my angles more accurate. So it's the horizon line kind of acts as a guideline, and it'll help keep your angles a little bit more accurate. So let's say that's hopefully, you also want to try to draw that horizon line as correctly as possible. Hopefully I did. We'll kind of see how it goes. So the other thing I'm going to do now is just kind of space out the drawing. So I'm doing my sighting here and thinking about how much of this angle I see versus where this next wall comes in. That'll be another anchor here, and I'm also going to look at this negative space here. Now before I get too far, I want to double check my angles. I think this actually goes down a little bit, and I would want to do that now rather than later. So let's just see what happens here. I think that, so I'm looking at this negative space. So try to bring back into your mind the different things we've done throughout the semester, the negative space, the sighting, the verticals being parallel to the side of the page. We're gonna kind of try to keep all of those things in mind. This is pulling together a lot of what we've done already. And remember, we're starting out really light. We're giving ourselves a lot of time and room for adjustment. We don't want to make any decisions yet. We want to see how things are going. So this, for example, so I just kind of did this sighting in the beginning. I know that this, where the wall and the ceiling meet, this line that I'm going to draw, and where the wall and the floor meet, the two of these are going to meet on a vanishing point that is on the horizon line. So if this angle is accurate, if I was going to continue it straight, it looks like my vanishing point would be there. If I was going to continue this line straight, it would be over here. Now, do those two line up? On my drawing, they don't. So there's something wrong with that angle. And I'm showing you that so you can see, hopefully, how the vanishing point, and I'll make it a little bit darker. I'll try to draw it here so you can see it. You can see how that would not meet up. So that is not what you want to do. If that happens, just erase that line. Maybe that one's right, we'll see. Now you can angle, you know, my angle was a little bit off. It's probably down here. And I know that those need to meet up on the vanishing point, which might be, let's see, I'm kind of looking at in space. It's probably way over here, way off, so you can't really see it. So if you know that your vanishing point doesn't end before this wall, so now before I do this, I might want to think about height to width of what I see in this wall. What is this measurement from here to here versus from here to here where this other door is? So I'm going to take my pencil, put the tip on the top, put my finger on the bottom there. It's about pencil height from where I am. It's longer than wider, even though I know that this wall is wider rather than taller, but from my perspective, it is not. And that's why the sighting is so key, because our mind kind of says, wait a minute, it can't be that way. So the width of the wall is about 3/4 of the way up. So the wall actually ends here. So that might help me determine what this angle is and if it's accurate. So let's say I draw that in, and that's that wall. We'll see if that works. Now, the way that this vanishing point can really help is this angle of this wall here, and this is where it gets kind of tricky. This is going to go up a little bit, and this is going to go down a little bit, depending how you want to kind of talk about it here. Now this angle and this one, this line here of this wall, of this hallway, that's the hallway I drew before, that angle and this angle are both going to go to the same vanishing point over on the left. Same with this angle and this one here, all on that same vanishing point. So if I did this angle, let's say like this, because I think that might be where it is, let's say, I don't, but let's say, if I did a continual line here, I would see it doesn't meet up with the same vanishing point. So I know that that can't be right. So I would erase it, erase this. And you can kind of use this as a guideline. You could put your pencil here and say, well, it has to be at least that, but then it's probably going to be angled a little bit more to meet up wherever that vanishing point is way off the paper over here. So this vanishing point idea should help you. Again, you want to see. Probably going to be angled even more, and that's where the mind kind of tries to take over, like, hey, I think I know where this is. I think I know what this angle is. So you want to try to use your measuring and sighting as much as possible. So if this angle is correct, this one would probably be like this. And so what you can do is you could draw it out where you think it would meet up with this one with that vanishing point, and you can also sight it. So I put my pencil, I line it up in space. It's almost horizontal, even though I know it's angled more. So that's where that 2 point can get a little bit confusing. What goes this way, what goes that way. If you make sure to sight and measure and don't just rely on the vanishing points, that might help a little bit too. Now, there's a couple other of sighting things I want to do here. Now there's molding, for example. So this, if that's where let's say the molding is that high, I wouldn't want this molding to get bigger as it goes back, right? If anything, it is gonna get smaller, and it's gonna go to that same vanishing point, and you can kind of keep thinking about approximately where it is in your space here. It's probably gonna go something like that. And I might see some molding. There's a doorway here. So I now need to also determine a couple other things. So there's a doorway up here, for example, that comes out a little bit more. Try to pay attention to these little details. So if that's the corner of the wall where the walls meet, there's a little bit of space, and then there's the doorway. So those details will help the viewer, and you want to also think about how high up this is. It might be down a little bit more, so don't make that decision yet. You want to think about width to height. And the angle, the top of this door is also going to meet on that same vanishing point over on the left. And the width of this door, you probably want to measure, so tip of pencil here, finger here, how many of the width of that door go into this wall, for example. So 1, 2, if I drew it this big. Now I'm going to go up in space. I'm going to put my tip of my pencil to the door, my finger on the other, the tip of the pencil on the left side of the door, the tip of my finger on the right side of the door. I'm going to shift that over and see how much of that measurement. It's about right. So just kind of double checking by doing sighting and measuring. So remember, all your verticals are parallel to the side of the page. I'm not going to get too into all of that detail yet because I want to make sure that it's not up too high. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure between the top of the door and the ceiling and how many of that measurement goes into the height of the door. And just to check before I get too far. I think I might know what it is, but I want to use my sighting to check. So I'm measuring 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a little less than 6. So now I'm going to go up here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's about right. Maybe it's slightly lower. Maybe just like that, trimming it down. And sometimes just a little bit lower or an angle that's just a little higher can make a difference. So I'm not exactly sure until I kind of look at it all in place and see if it's working. We'll see. Let's see, what else do we want to kind of measure out? There's a lot of details in here. Now, when you're doing your interior space, you want to focus on getting the structure of the space first. And if you have time, drawing in some of the details. So we'll see what happens with this drawing. I want to definitely show you guys shading as well. So I'll try to draw things in as quick as I can here. There's a little bit of molding around the door. So I started to draw it there, but I think I'm actually going to go in here a little and draw some of this detail just because I don't really know what other major structure to draw yet. I'm going to draw in some of this. And I'm going to draw the windows in. Now the tops of these windows of the door, those would also, you wouldn't want to angle them on a different angle. They're all going to align. Now down here, when I get into the molding on the bottom, now I want to determine my horizon line. So here I have my horizon line. I'm not sure what that is there. Here I have my horizon line a little less than halfway down from the door. I'm going to just kind of double check there. So that means that here would be a little bit lower, And then this is a little wider, so this goes like this. The bottom is a little higher than where the molding is. So the molding and that kind of thing, that can help me realize where things are here. So this is actually here, and this is a little lower, like this perhaps. A couple other things. So the shoe rack goes up to about here, and it's above my horizon line, so that's about right. So let's say it's above the horizon line, so it's not going to angle this way because it has to meet over. You can kind of remind yourself these two go this way, so it's got to be above. And where does it go along the wall? 1, 2, about a third of the way. So you could go 1, 2, 3, so a little bit farther out, maybe something like that. And I don't see the top of it, really. Ever so slightly, I see the top of it. And then the bottom is actually up a little bit, and there's comes out. There's a little bit of space. So there's some details we'll see later. This and this would technically go that way to the left part. And then there's 2. This is slightly, ever so slightly this way. This is ever so slightly that way. Those are good. It's funny because they're almost horizontal, but there's some angle there like that. And then they even go in the middle like that. Okay, so I'm just going to try to lightly map that out. This top goes to here. Now there's a window over here, so I want to look at the width here so I know where to place that window. If I place it way over here, there's obviously going to be too much wall. And the window goes up as high as the door. So this is where the guideline, if I did the angle of that door correctly, I can look at this height versus this height, and that'll help me determine that versus that, where I place that window for the most part, if that's accurate. So this, we wouldn't need this, we wouldn't need that now. Wouldn't need that, wouldn't need that. That's all guideline. You can keep it on there if you want to. And I'm looking at the bottom part of the window lines up with this. So you can use that as a guideline and then erase it later, right? You can erase all that later. So that would kind of be the determination of the window. The left 4 panels are all, the height is all the same. So if I can determine where they are, and so sometimes I have to kind of go down, go here. You might try again if that didn't work. So I'm trying to place 3 lines so that this is the same as this, is the same as this, is the same as that. So sometimes it takes a little while, but if I can determine those 3 lines, then I know that this one's going to be above the horizon. They're all going to be actually above the horizon line. So they're all going to angle down ever so slightly, like that. And they're a little wider, so it's probably something like that. Maybe that one's a little less. So that would be kind of where that is for the most part. Now over here, there's a little bit of detail, so I kind of mapped that out. I'm gonna go over here to the left, and I'm going to look, so I see a door here. Where is the height of the door compared to this? So I'm doing my sighting. It's a little bit above, and it's going to go to that same vanishing point. So I'm gonna double check here. I'm gonna do a horizontal line over. I see that it starts about there, and I know that it's going to that same vanishing point over here. So I'm gonna try to map that in. I could look at this and bring it over, and then it's going to be a little less, probably something like that. It's also going to, I'm gonna look at the width of where the door starts compared to something else. So like, let's say from here to here versus from here to here. So I'm doing my pencil sighting, and it's a little wider. So it's probably something like this. And remember that you're trying to make that vertical. See how I'm doing kind of those sketchy little marks. I'm using my hand as an anchor to help give me control. I haven't done any shading yet, and I'm using an HB, so it shouldn't smear any graphite too much. So there's going to be molding. I'm looking at what the width of the molding is compared to the width of something else. Also artwork, so you could maybe place a little bit of artwork, and you could do some details later, and there's a light switch, so things like that can be helpful. The light switch looks like it's about here. It's also just additional practice, so trying to draw little details in, like light switch. The artwork looks like it's kind of here, and it goes vertical, and it's kind of here. So this will all be helpful practice for you. This side would go to the other vanishing point. So this would be vertical. This is like when we did boxes. You see ever so slightly, just a little bit of that bottom part of the artwork there. I don't want that to be prominent. There's little details. You could do some, sometimes adding like a little detail here or there. There's a little piece of bamboo, little objects will give the eye something. There's my sanitizer. There's this here is some pussy willow. So that might be a nice pattern, a visual to like not put too much pressure on the angles, kind of break things up a little bit. There's shoes and stuff in there. There's the rug. I might want to put the rug in. And the rug kind of comes to here. So this part of the rug would go over that way. This part ends about here. And it would also go to that same vanishing point. And you can check to see if something's way off. All right, you can kind of go like this and trace that over just to see. I'm just gonna not get into the other details that are here. There's like a couch and there's a table and there's other stuff, but I'm not gonna do that right now because I think I wanna try to continue and show you the shading. So you don't wanna outline everything right now. The goal is to try to make it look more three-dimensional. So I'm gonna start working on shading. Now, depending on where you are, you might wanna capture a light. Now I have this strong light coming in right now that if I can capture it, might make it look really, really nice here. So this is this cast shadow. The light from the window is kind of coming in. I'm gonna try to map this out here. I'm gonna capture it now and hopefully be able to get some of it here. There's the shoes and stuff, but I'm not gonna put those in. The other light that's coming in is somewhere over here. If you can get these cast shadows, if there's like a nice bright light, it'll help give it dimension. So I'm just kind of drawing some of those in really, really lightly right now, and it's gonna hopefully look right later. You're going to take more time than I'm going to do with this now, but you wanna start locating some of your darker darks, and ideally you wanna work left to right. At this point, if you know you're done with all your drawing, you can erase your guidelines and horizon line because you don't want those to show up. But I did not press very hard when I was doing that, so it shouldn't show later. You really wanna press lightly in the beginning. And you want to get rid of that horizon line. And you also want it to, you know, it's really hard to make everything line up completely right. It's just the way of the game. So something's going to be like slightly off. If it looks pretty good when you draw it, then, you know, go for it. And as long as nothing looks way off. And I'm not really getting enough perspective now. It looks like actually this is too much of an angle. So this is something I just stood up and checked. So this, you could kind of go like this, right? And you could continue this one here and do that one over there. I think this one's on a little bit too much of an angle, so I'm just gonna shift it up like that, ever so slightly. And I think that should, hopefully, maybe it's somewhere in between, like that. All right, now I'm going to start shading. And again, I wanna kind of work left to right. I wanna bring in some of the dark. So this is an HB. You don't wanna go right to too dark. So I have a 2B, 4B, 8B, 2B, 6B. You might want some lighter areas, so I'd have your HB, I would have all those around. So you can go in there and kind of use your pencil like this and go into some areas. You know, I'm gonna go a little bit darker, but these, if you had something like this that was like a 4B, that could be good. I'm gonna, yeah, let's go in with the 4B. So if I go in and I hold it like a pencil, like I normally would, I would just try to stay light. Don't press too hard and build up the layers. You also, just like with the reflection, you want to work in multiple angles and again, build up, and don't just go in one direction. You're kind of continually going to be cross-hatching.